Trigger warning. This video contains descriptions of abuse, SA, and violence that may be triggering for some viewers. Please listen with care and take space if you need it. There's a silence in the entertainment industry that's louder than any headline. A silence padded with non-disclosure agreements, shielded by luxury and red carpet appearances. A silence so thick, it suffocated truth for decades. And now, that silence is cracking. This trial, the one centered around Sean Diddy Combs, is not just about one individual. It's about what power looks like when it's unchecked. It's about the price of silence, the currency of complicity, and the individuals who are no longer willing to pay for someone else's fame. We are witnessing a cultural reckoning, and this episode isn't just commentary. It's a call to listen deeper, ask the hard questions, and stop letting image override impact. Because this is bigger than Sean Diddy Combs. Welcome to Life Points with Ronda, your space for courageous truth-telling and grounded conversation. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a case that's shaking the foundations of celebrity culture and forcing all of us to ask some hard questions. We're here to talk about the ongoing federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs. But this isn't just about what's happening inside the courtroom. It's about what's been happening outside of it for decades, behind the platinum records, behind the red carpets, behind the legacy. Before we dive in, smash that like button if you're ready for truth over trend. Hit subscribe if you want honest, ongoing commentary that's never clickbait. And if you want the unfiltered, deep dive version of this episode, head over to Patreon, where nothing is censored and everything goes deeper. That link is below. For years, Sean Combs wasn't just a man. He was a brand, a billionaire, a curator of culture. But what we're finding out now is that that brand was protected at all costs, not just by security guards or lawyers, but by an entire system of silence. We're talking non-disclosure agreements, paid settlements, legal intimidation, and a culture that rewarded proximity to fame more than it protected people. According to courtroom testimony from a former assistant identified only as Mia, Diddy assaulted her multiple times over the span of nearly a decade. She testified that he controlled every aspect of her movements, including forbidding her from locking her bedroom door, and said he assaulted her at his 40th birthday party at the Plaza Hotel in his LA mansion, and even on private jets. She described going 5 days straight without sleep to meet his demands. This wasn't just abuse, this was labor trafficking. And yet, for years, those closest to him stayed quiet. Why? Because silence was currency, and protection came with a paycheck. So, when we talk about Diddy, we can't talk about him in isolation. We have to talk about the machine that protected him. Cassie, the quiet collapse of a public fairy tale. Cassie Ventura was young, magnetic, and heavily branded as Diddy's muse. To the public, she was poised and radiant, but in her testimony and court filings, she revealed a different reality, one marked by SA, manipulation, coercion, and surveillance. She described being forced into drug-fueled parties, called freak-offs, some of which were allegedly filmed without consent. She detailed instances of physical assault that left her bleeding and requiring stitches. One former stylist, Deontay Nash, testified to witnessing Cassie with a swollen lip and bloody nose after one of these incidents. Cassie also described trying to leave, only to be punished. This was not a relationship. This was control, disguised as love, silence disguised as loyalty, and violence disguised as power. And while Cassie's story made headlines, we must remember she is just one of many. A pattern, not a plot. Other witnesses come forward. Let's name what's really happening. This isn't just about one survivor or one testimony. This is about a pattern. Let's name some of the people and testimonies that cracked this machine open. Cassie Ventura, ex-girlfriend and singer. Cassie testified that Combs subjected her to a decade of physical and sexual abuse, including coercion into drug-fueled acts known as freak-offs. She described being controlled, surveilled, and punished for disobedience. Cassie also recounted an incident where Combs assaulted her at a hotel, which was later corroborated by surveillance footage. Mia, former assistant. Testifying under a pseudonym, Mia detailed years of alleged SA abuse and physical violence by Combs during her employment from 2009 to 2017. She described multiple instances of sexual assault, including being assaulted without consent at Combs' 40th birthday party and enduring grueling work conditions, such as going 5 days without sleep to meet his demands. Capricorn Clark, former creative director. Clark testified that Combs once kidnapped her in a jealous rage, intending to confront rapper Kid Cudi over his relationship with Cassie Ventura. She recounted that Combs threatened to unalive everyone if she didn't convince Cudi that he wasn't involved. Deontay Nash, former stylist. Nash testified that he witnessed Combs violently assault Cassie Ventura in 2013, including dragging her by the hair and repeatedly hitting her until she struck her head on a bed frame. He also described Combs routinely calling Ventura degrading names. Scott Muscudi, better known as Kid Cudi, testified about his brief relationship with Cassie Ventura. He recounted that after Sean Combs found out, someone broke into his house. Later, his car was set on fire in his driveway. Dawn. Richard, singer and former member of Danity Kane, testified that she witnessed Sean Combs physically abuse Cassie Ventura multiple times. She mentioned that Combs threatened her and her bandmates to stay silent. Richard described incidents of violence, including one where Combs allegedly threw a pan of eggs at Ventura. Regina Ventura, Cassie's mother, testified that she took photos of her daughter showing bruises and injuries allegedly inflicted by Sean Combs. These photos were meant to document the abuse. Carrie Morgan, Cassie's former best friend. Morgan testified that she witnessed Combs physically assault Cassie on multiple occasions, and that he also assaulted her by choking her and hitting her with a wooden hanger. George Kaplan, former assistant. Kaplan testified about the aftermath of Combs' violent outbursts, including cleaning hotel rooms, left in disarray with broken glass, blood, and candle wax. He also recounted being tasked with procuring drugs for Combs. David James, former assistant. James testified about an incident where Combs asked him to falsely report to the police that a chef had assaulted him, which James refused to do. He also described an environment where employees were expected to cover up Combs' misconduct. Myla Morales, makeup artist. Morales testified that she witnessed Cassie Ventura with visible injuries after an altercation with Combs, and that Cassie stayed with her for a few days following the incident. Frederick Zemmer, hotel manager. Zemmer testified about the state of hotel rooms after Combs' stays, describing excessive damage that required deep cleaning and additional charges due to the condition of the rooms. Daniel Phillip, male escort. Phillip testified that he was paid to have intimacy with Cassie Ventura while Combs watched. He recounted an incident where Combs threw a bottle at Ventura and dragged her by her hair after she did not immediately follow his instructions. Sherry Hayes, male exotic dancer. Hayes, known as the Punisher, testified that he was paid $800 to perform a sensual scene for Combs and Cassie Ventura in a Trump Tower suite in 2012. He stated that Ventura instructed him to avoid eye contact with Combs and not to communicate with him. These aren't isolated incidents. They are a map of abuse, control, and systematic cover-up. This machine didn't just protect Sean Combs, it enabled him. And every person who looked away helped keep it running. What it means beyond the headlines. Let's zoom out. Because this case, this long overdue public unraveling of Sean Diddy Combs, is no longer just a legal battle. It's a mirror, held up not just to one man, but to an entire culture that enabled him. When powerful men like Combs are finally called out, there's a predictable cycle that unfolds. A bombshell headline. A few days of social media buzz. a PR-crafted apology or deflection, then silence, until the next headline. But this time feels different. Why? Because who is speaking matters. The people testifying aren't just tabloid sources. They're former employees, artists, assistants, family members. Many of them are Black women. Many of them are working class professionals who had everything to lose by coming forward. And that changes everything. These are people who were once part of the dream, the inner circle. They walked the red carpets, they were trusted, and now they're saying, this dream was a nightmare. They're not just recounting isolated incidents, they're exposing a structure, a pattern, a systemic tolerance for abuse, as long as the image looked pristine. Let's talk about image, because this is what so many people have been conditioned to worship. Sean Combs was an icon of Black excellence, a music mogul, a businessman, a cultural architect. But if we conflate success with sainthood, we end up protecting predators. Let me say that again. When we idolize image, we ignore impact. And that's exactly how abuse thrives, in the cracks between perception and truth. For years, Black survivors were told, don't air our dirty laundry, don't bring down one of our own, protect the legacy. But what's the cost of that protection? How many dreams had to die behind closed doors? How many careers were derailed, voices silenced, and lives traumatized because someone else was too famous to be questioned? The witnesses in this case aren't just calling out a man, they're calling out a mindset. One that says fame equals immunity. One that teaches silence equals safety. One that conditions us to cheer for power, even when it's abusive, because we're afraid of losing access to the table. This trial is showing us that we need new tables. Ones where survivors aren't punished for speaking up. Ones where we don't need someone's downfall to believe someone else's truth. Ones where celebrity isn't an excuse for cruelty. We're watching history unfold, not just because of the severity of the allegations, but because of the magnitude of who's finally being held accountable. But here's the most urgent truth. This isn't just about Diddy. It's about the hundreds, maybe thousands of people who watched, whispered, enabled, excused, or benefited from the silence. And it's about what we, the culture, do with this moment. Do we digest it and move on? Or do we interrogate why it took this long for someone to say, this isn't okay? Not anymore. The legacy of silence. How the industry laundered harm. What we're witnessing with this trial is the unveiling of something far bigger than just the fall of one man. This is about an entire ecosystem built to keep secrets. An entertainment machine that doesn't just protect predators, but rewards them, reinvents them, and sells them back to us as icons. Let's break it all the way down. For decades, Sean Diddy Combs wasn't just a mogul. He was the moment. His face was plastered across billboards. His brand walked the runways. and his sound shaped the soundtrack of Black excellence. But behind that carefully crafted public image was a private reality. One controlled by intimidation, abuse, and silence. And that silence didn't happen by accident. It was curated, bought, engineered. NDAs became normal. Settlements became strategy. Fear became policy. Because in this industry, it's not just about what's said, it's about what's allowed to be said. Every assistant who signed paperwork, every artist warned to play the game, every staff member who watched the trauma, but was told, don't get involved. That's not just silence. That's complicity, dressed in professionalism and disguised as loyalty. Let's call it what it is. The entertainment industry launders harm the way banks launder money. It rebrands abuse as controversy. It silences survivors by making them the problem. It leverages PR teams to shift the narrative while the real story rots behind the scenes. And in the case of Diddy, that machine was global. Private jets, multi-million-dollar settlements, luxury homes with surveillance in every room. Security teams trained to watch, not protect. This wasn't just a man hiding his crimes. This was a man empowered to commit them because the people around him had a stake in his success. Let me ask you this. What happens when an assistant who's seen it all decides they can't take it anymore? What happens when a young woman finally realizes that being branded someone's muse doesn't mean she's safe? What happens when the truth is no longer a whisper, but a wave? That's where we are right now. And make no mistake, this is personal for the culture because it forces us to face a hard truth. Sometimes we protect the people who hurt us the most because we're afraid to lose the version of them we celebrated. Sean Combs was a Black man who made it. That matters. But that can't mean we excuse the harm done along the way. Success doesn't erase sin. It doesn't grant immunity. And it should never outweigh justice. This legacy of silence also hurts other survivors. How many people saw this unfold and said, if no one believed Cassie, why would they believe me? How many left the industry because it was too unsafe to stay? How many up-and-coming artists watched this and learned that silence isn't just survival, it's the price of admission? It's not just the trauma that does damage, it's the isolation. And this industry, as it's currently built, thrives on isolating the truth. But guess what? Every testimony, every piece of footage, every name that comes forward is a crack in the dam. This isn't just a leak, it's a flood. And the people who built their legacies on secrecy should be afraid. So, where do we go from here? It starts with removing protection from the powerful and redirecting it toward the vulnerable. It starts with questioning why certain behaviors were ever normalized in the first place. It starts with not just asking, how did Diddy get away with this? But asking, who helped him? Who watched? Who knew? Because if we don't start naming that, we're not actually doing the work. We're just consuming the scandal like a headline. True accountability looks like dismantling silence contracts that muzzle survivors, defunding predatory privilege, no more icon status as armor, empowering witnesses with legal protection and real platforms, amplifying survivor voices without tokenizing them, building systems of prevention, not just damage control after exposure, and maybe most importantly, reimagining power in our communities. Power that doesn't rely on fear. Power that doesn't require secrets to survive. Power that uplifts, protects, and holds space for humanity, not just success. Because when we build something new, the silence ends with us. Cultural reckoning, or just another celebrity storm. So here we are, in the middle of what the media calls a reckoning. But the question is it really? Because when it comes to celebrity scandals, especially those that involve allegations of violence, sexual assault, or manipulation, we've been here before. We've all seen the pattern. The expose drops, social media erupts, the think pieces start rolling in, a few celebrities unfollow, some brands pull back, and then, quietly, the news cycle shifts. A new headline takes over. A new distraction arrives, and we move on. But this time has to be different. And here's why. We are not just talking about rumors. We are not just talking about cancel culture or celebrity beef. We're talking about people, real lives, who were entangled, manipulated, and in some cases allegedly destroyed by a man who stood at the center of Black entertainment for over 30 years. We're talking about Black women, assistants, stylists, dancers, partners, who were told that protecting a legacy was more important than protecting their own bodies. We're talking about gay, Black male sex workers who were allegedly used, exploited, and silenced because their existence could disrupt the fantasy. We're talking about survivors who stayed quiet, not because they wanted to, but because power told them to. So, is this a cultural reckoning? Or is it just another celebrity storm? Let's look at the signs. Yes, more survivors are speaking up. Yes, some media platforms are finally reporting on the details without watering them down. Yes, people are paying attention in a way they weren't before. But here's what hasn't changed. Major publications are still hesitant to go all the way there unless someone else breaks it first. Industry insiders are still avoiding direct accountability, even if they knew. A-list stars are still eerily silent because they don't want to disrupt their own bags. And most damning of all, there's still a part of the public that's more concerned about losing a nostalgic soundtrack than confronting what built it. Let's be real. This isn't just about one case. This is about a generational addiction to celebrity immunity. How many times have we looked the other way because he made my favorite album? How many times have we dismissed allegations because she's probably just trying to get money? How many times have we internalized the idea that fame equals integrity. Fame is a filter. It doesn't cleanse behavior, it just masks it better. And as long as we keep giving celebrities the benefit of the doubt before we give it to survivors, we are part of the machine. But there's still time to shift this. That shift won't come from TMZ. It won't come from a headline. It won't even come from this trial's verdict. It's gonna come from us, from the creators and platforms who refuse to look away, from communities who uplift truth tellers over image makers, from the survivors who refuse to be ashamed, and from you, the audience, who decides that you're not going to let this story fade quietly into the background. So, if you're watching this and you feel a tension in your chest, if you've ever stayed silent in the face of harm because you didn't think anyone would believe you, if you've ever witnessed abuse in a workplace, a relationship, a studio session, and didn't know what to do, let this be a line in the sand. This moment is not about outrage. It's about recalibration. And whether or not this is a real reckoning will depend on what we do next. Do we keep centering survivors even after the cameras stop rolling? Do we demand accountability from the systems that allowed this, not just the individuals? Do we challenge ourselves to unlearn celebrity worship and relearn community safety? Because if we only react and don't transform, we're just performing justice, not practicing it. This isn't about canceling Diddy. It's about canceling the systems that made him untouchable for decades. It's about building an industry, hell, a culture, where silence no longer buys protection, and where truth no longer comes with a price tag. This is bigger than one man. If you're still here, still watching, still breathing a little heavier than usual, then you already know this was never just about Diddy. It's about the quiet architecture of power. It's about who gets protected and who gets punished. It's what happens when the cameras are off, the NDAs are signed, and the screams are silent. And let me be crystal clear. This channel is not here to exploit trauma for views. It's here to break the old way of doing things, to tell stories that matter, to center voices that were muted, to hold space where truth lives, even if it's uncomfortable. This is Life Points with Ronda. And I don't care about trending. I care about transformation. So if this episode stirred something in you, don't scroll away. Sit with it. Reflect, rewatch, and more than anything, drop a comment. What shocked you? What have you been feeling about this trial? Do you think the system is finally cracking or just getting better at hiding? I read every comment. And I want this to be our space, not just mine. And if you want the full deep dive where I name names, connect dots, and go behind the curtain with uncensored facts, you already know where to find me on Patreon. The link is in the description below. That's where I'm breaking it all down. Cassie's mother, the male sex workers, the unfiltered witness transcripts, the sealed court records, and what's between the lines. The behind-the-scenes protection still in play. It's the version of this episode some individuals can't handle. So, again, hit that subscribe button, like this video, share it with someone still confused about what's really going on. Because we're not just building a channel, we're building a movement of minds who are tired of silence and ready to speak what's real. Stay grounded, stay aware, stay lifted. This is Life Points with Ronda. And here, we don't just talk about culture,